Welcome to In This Corner. I'm Cyrus Fees. On this episode, folks, it's this one's going to blow your mind. One of the biggest names and just one of the biggest humans, period. A guy that has been in wrestling, kickboxing, MMA. In fact, let's go through his credentials and let's get right to this because it's going to be a full episode of just this man. 16 years in kickboxing, 16 years in MMA, 10 years in professional wrestling, former IWGP heavyweight champion, one of the biggest wins, one of the biggest upsets ever over Ernesto Hoost, former third-round pick in the NFL draft with the Chicago Bears, also played with the Minnesota Vikings, 15-plus movies, hundreds of commercials, and one of the biggest names in all of Japan. This guy has literally done it all. I'm talking about Bob the Beast Sapp, and we are live here with Bob right now on location. I can't tell you where, but let's go to him right now. Bob, how you doing?
That's right. The Beast is always in parts unknown. Let me tell you, I'm out running around and still having a great time. Hey, we're trying to do it safe with that coronavirus, but yes. I can always have a good time.
I love it, you know, and that's, I wanted to get to that right out of the gate. Of course, this coronavirus is absolutely turning the world upside down. Where you're at, how are you handling it? Obviously, you're not in the States. You've probably seen what's going on in the States. How are you handling the whole situation and not being able to get out and that sort of thing?
Yes, you know, so I live primarily in Asia. Now I live in East Asia, and well, things over here, they're fine. It's a bit hot, but the people, you know, we still have toilet paper.
That's great.
and there's plenty of hand sanitizer, plenty of food, all of those things. There's no lot of there. You don't really see any of the panics and stuff like that. We do have curfews and lockdowns for you know, for our safety. And that's about it. There's no protests, nothing like this. You know, you can still go out, you can go to the malls and stuff. They want you to practice social distancing. With so many languages and so many cultures and stuff, it gets to be kind of hard to really practice the social distancing that's implemented like in the United States. So they do the best they can, and that's it. Nobody's yelling at each other for it. No, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just, you know, it's like, hey, did you know that social distance? They say, okay. And if they can understand you, they do it. If they can understand you, you don't say anything and you keep moving, and that's it.
It seems pretty simple to me, man. It seems like being Bob Sapp, it would be hard to social distance ever. You just such
yes.
an individual, man. You're gonna run into something.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another thing. Like for me, I am very, very fortunate. So the people, some of the private hospitals in Japan, they've donated me a ton of protective gear. And same thing with the hospitals over here. So they've given me tons of hand sanitizer, over 3,000 plus masks, all of that stuff. Because that's correct. A lot of fans come up to me all the time. Hey, what's up? Hey. It's like, okay, this is impossible for me to do this. And so they understand that, and they give me a lot of the things. And, you know, a lot of them I went over and helped give out. You know, I had an abundance of the masks. I ended up getting somewhere like 10,000 of them. So I started giving away a lot of the different masks. I kept a few thousand for myself, but then I started giving away. Same thing with hand sanitizers and stuff. So now, you know, now I just donate them off to others that need them. But you're absolutely right. Celebrities and stuff, forget it, man. There ain't no stuff, man. They gonna talk about selfies and pictures no matter what, man. It's that's right.
Yeah, it's insane over here, but you know, it led to this show and allows me to talk to great figures in the combat sports world like yourself, and I'm very, very blessed to do that here on In This Corner. And man, you know what a wild career you've had, man. And you know, it's funny, you know, I've always known about you throughout the years, and I've been a big fan of what you do. But, you know, once I dug a little bit deeper and I saw some of the things that you've dealt with and the fame that you hit, especially overseas, it's really mind-blowing. And I don't think people really understand the magnitude of what that is, because everybody in America, we're usually all about America, and whatever's happening in America, that's the only thing that's important. But they don't realize what's happening on the other side of the world. And, you know, when you talk about the mid-2000s and the fame that you hit, even to this day, It really is incredible. And I want to dig into that. But first off, you're up there in Washington, University of Washington, you're playing football. You get drafted by the Bears. Talk about that process. And did you ever really even foresee yourself going down the path that you went down?
No, absolutely not. So one of the things is that when I was at the University of Washington, first I went there to become a physician, to become a doctor. So I went to school year round. I graduated. My first degree, I graduated in 3 years because I went for year round. So, I ended up getting my first degree earlier. I ended up getting another degree right before I left. However, wow. Once you're drafted, it was a big dream for me. I thought I was going to be in the NFL for 10 years. It was exciting. Well, to make a long story short, I went to the NFL and I played the position known as ass back. That meant I ran on the field and coach said, "Bob, bring your ass back." So, I was sitting there on the bench. You know what? I want to play. Definitely was on the cards. It was a lot of things that went on in the NFL. One of which a lot of people love to discuss is that this whole anabolic steroid thing that went on in the NFL. And, that was a anabolic steroid policy. So that's the reason why when you look over about me, you see that policy, but you don't see any chemical that's listed with my name. So we can kind of, dispute some of the mystery right there, because if it was a chemical, it would say, I tested positive for this chemical, I did this to whatever. There's no such bottle that you grab and says steroids and that's what it is. Okay, it went against the anabolic steroid policy, and it's very simple. Back then, me amongst like all the other players, there was a substance known as androstenedione in GNC.
Sure.
I took that with NGNC, and me and amongst other players got in trouble for it, and that was all that was. There was nothing that was huge. There was no big mystery. Nobody was behind, gyms and tradings and doing things like that. Yeah. That's not what it was.
So obviously we remember hearing about Andro, of course, with Mark McGuire, right. 6 years later, you know what I mean? So
that's right. And and then it was just, whatever, my rules are still the same as they were then. My feelings are the same. I'm thinking, if it's legal in the stores, how can it be illegal in a company or a club? That's kind of strange. Yeah. So that, and there's plenty of that stuff still going on to this day. And it just shows, it's just the rules of the game. Whenever you're in there, you got to abide by the rules of the game, no matter how crazy they are. You do your best to do it, and you just leave it alone. That's all there is to it.
Well, that led you to professional wrestling.
That's right.
And I don't think I think there's a lot of people that maybe in the fight game don't realize that that's where you started originally. Was in the professional wrestling, and then of course you moved into kickboxing fairly quickly. But talk about, that move into wrestling and, was it something that maybe you watched as a kid and you really loved, like everybody did, in that era? Or was it something that it was just an opportunity and it's just something you took to very easily?
Yes. So while I was at the Minnesota Vikings, I got drafted by the Bears, and then I got cut or traded and went on to the Minnesota Vikings. While I was at the Minnesota Vikings, riding the bench at the Minnesota Vikings, there was a mayor or governor that was a former pro wrestler. His name was Jesse the Body Ventura.
Of course.
And he got on the radio and said, I don't know what the Vikings has got, but I saw this guy over there who's got the biggest body, the biggest arms, and he was a man among men, and he's sitting here riding the bench. But I can tell you right now, that guy's going to be somebody, because I can tell by his structure and, the way he was talking and laughing and things like this, that he's more suited for pro wrestling than he is suited for football.
Yeah.
Well, that got out. And once I later on went through like the whole ranks, because I had to go through all these other little things like NFL Europe, and then I had to go through, the Baltimore Ravens and the Raiders and all this kind of stuff. But that guy, he kind of followed me all the way through. And then I got a call from who was he does this like he used to be on the Vikings for many years, an old veteran by the name of Mike Morris. Okay. And Mike Morris said, "Listen, Ken Patera, Jesse the Body Ventura got a hold of Ken Patera, and they've got to see you." And I said, "Man, listen, I'm down and out. You know, I mean, I've got nothing. You know, I can't do. You know, I just got cut. You know, I'm sitting over here in my house. I'm you know, I can't do anything." He said, "Listen, Bob, they're going to get you one ticket. It's an economy ticket with some free flights we got. That's all you got. It's one way. And they say, you got to make it no matter what. So you got to come here tomorrow." Wow. I was like, okay. So I went down there, and the rest is history. They taught me how to do pro wrestling. We sent out our tapes to WWE and WCW. I went to both of them. Both of them responded. And WCW came back and was like, you know, hey, we want this guy. And I have those tapes, and we're thinking about whether we're going to release them, you know, the edition tapes and stuff. But I still have those edition tapes, and it went awesome, you know. And they came through, and Ted Turner and those guys got me, and they said, "Listen, we're going to teach you how to do this. We're going to teach you this game, but the first thing you got to learn is how to shut up." And I was like, "How do you know I'm going to be here?" He said, "That's strike one. If you get strike three, you're not going to come here." I said, and then he's like, boom, and he shows me what I'm going to be getting paid, and he shows me, you know, how they're going to take care of you and stuff. And they really do. They really do take care of you when they start you off. I'm going to tell you, you know, they start you off with $2,000 a week. That's every Friday. $500 every house show. 90 days hotel and car.
Yeah.
Now, I'm pretty sure you would say that's going to get you back on your feet.
Oh, of course.
Full health care.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that got, obviously, man, listen, I was a little wobbly when I got in there, but boy, I was on my feet.
Well, yeah, you know, I mean, and you got in at the zenith. I mean, the wrestling still hasn't been that big since those days, you know, so you got in really at the height of the era. And, you know, it's so funny because, you know, at that time I was coming through high school, and obviously a huge fan of the business, and our producer on here is here as well. And I remember always seeing the message boards and seeing the news, and your name would always pop up. Bob Sapp, is he coming to WWF? You know, they're talking to Bob Sapp. They might be bringing Bob Sapp in. And I just remember always seeing that name before I even, you know, years down the road, saw what you did in the fight game and knew a different side of you. So I knew that it was big. But then, of course, you did the developmental thing, but then you end up over in Japan. That had to be the turning point for your life, because you were so well embraced by the Japanese culture, by these Japanese organizations. And then, I mean, that's a game changer for you, right?
Yes, it is. So what happened was WCW went bankrupt, and I got picked up by FX Tough Man. So where they did an angle where it was a former Chicago Bear would fight his idol, because I used to idolize William the Refrigerator Perry. I wore his jersey in high school and all of this stuff. So they said, come through and do it. So they had me, they said, listen, you know, tell us a little bit about yourself. And I went on ahead and I did the interview, and they said, oh man, you know, your body, you're great and everything, but you know, you're talking about you like cats and you're reading, and you know, they're like, man, you know, they that's boring, you know? And I was like, that's boring. And so what I said is, well, what they said, just do your wrestling thing. I was like, what, you want me to do the wrestling angle? They said, yeah, do that. I said, well, the Refrigerator, I'll tell you what, he's old, and I'm going to put you back in the box, because that's right. It's all malfunctions. I'm going to put you back in the box and retire you, baby. I'm going to put my maid tag on your toe tag, you know. And so now they said, that's it. That's what you're going to do for this show. You're going to do that. Leave all that other Bob Sapp stuff alone. It's interesting, but quite frankly, that's terrible. Do that one. So I said, okay, I'll do that. And I ended up doing that. And wow, absolutely, it went incredible. That show got the highest ratings. It went crazy. That was Lawrence Taylor was hosting that show. Yeah. And remember, I had just came off of being you know, a heartbreaking disappointment for the NFL, right?
Sure.
And then I almost got up to being a star in WCW, and then now they're bankrupt. So those are two. So you turn around and you see this show on FX Tough Man, and what you get in there, what you get, bring the and what you get on there is the total of Lawrence Taylor speaking and saying, this man, Bob Sapp, is a nobody today, and he's going to be a nobody tomorrow.
Wow.
Woo! Talk about karma. So obviously right after that, he gets arrested and gets all this other bad stuff going on with him. And then the Japanese picks up my contract, and man, the rest is history, right? And what we can say is it led to, you know, me having, you know, thousands of over 400 product endorsements, 4,000 television shows, over 73 commercials, over 400 products in my name, likeness, and image. December 31st. You know, very few people, they don't like to talk about this, okay? Because a lot of the guys, they see my fights, my wins, my losses.
Yeah, of course.
Don't really like to talk about the history. But let's just make it sure. I understand it's still going to be the person that has the most televised viewed fight in the history of this planet is me. So 54 million people watched me at one time. That is the world record. You ain't gonna get that close to nobody else. So whether they want to say, oh, Bob sucks, and oh man, he's bad, and look at it, guess what? I got the world record, buddy. So you know what? And if anyone wants to knock that off, that would make me number 2. Peace. So I've got my own holiday in Japan, and just so they can have an understanding of those numbers, American Idol finale in 2006, 25 million people watched. Bob Sapp, 54 million. So that's, now if you ask me, if you're saying, hey Bob, why are you in USA and you stay out of USA? You go to where you're treated best, my friends.
All day long. No, all day long. Yeah, I've been in this MMA bubble for probably the last 15 years of my life. And you know, I had a TV show, you know, about 4 or 5 years ago, and we covered the sport as it went, you know. And you're so right. Like, people don't understand. They don't get the level of fame that you received over in Japan. I mean, still to this day, people don't get it. The hardcores understand. The people that are like real hardcore fans, they know. The ones that are watching, you know, every MMA fight, you know, every promotion overseas, they get it. But most people don't understand. They know you from The Longest Yard. They know you from this and they know you from that, but they don't understand what life might be like for you. Can you explain to me what that fame looks like if you're walking in Tokyo on a normal day? What's that fame look like for Bob Sapp?
I will, if I go to McDonald's, that's 1 block away. At that time, it would take me roughly 3.5 hours just to get there, through pictures and autographs and people freaking out and going crazy. Now it's a few years later, so it's no nearly that much because they know me, they see me.
Yeah.
So it's going to take me roughly 45 minutes. Okay. Yeah. So I still, when I go, I'm still unable to sit down. I'm still unable to do things. And quite recently, the American, now everyone's got like this, their version of news, right? And there was a situation to where I had one of my ex-manager decided to put some photos out and say, hey, this is some domestic violence type of stuff.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, and so you may have read about this, or maybe you have not read about it. And so they decided to put this out, and that was and so for the ones in America, that was like their perfect chance, you know. Yes, I can jump on, and this is what and I'm going, you guys, this is from Japan, and you know, you have no idea what this means. Well, they decided to jump on, and then they went on ahead and said, you know, Bob Sapp's popularity is fading. Well, at the time, all my commercials was being played in every taxi cab everywhere around Japan. So I have no idea about that. But then they went on to say, that I have that there's some criminal allegations to whatever. They did bring on, it did make it to the police. The police came over, knocked at my door and said, "We're sorry, we have to inform you of this." And they gave me what's called a denial letter. And they said, "We don't know what's going on, but man, we have never seen this in 30 years. Bob, your life is incredible." I said, "I know it." That meant that the police knew that it was faulty, so it was thrown out before I was even needed to go to court. Okay. Yeah. And when you looked at what I was being charged with, well, it was typical kind of Japanese kind of a cultural thing. Okay. So what I'm charged with hypnotism stalking. My body was jumping out from America and was boogling, scaring her around Japan and came back.
Hypnotism stalking?
Yes. And
I've never heard those two words go together in my life.
Exactly. So, well, listen, Keanu Reeves had it. Keanu Reeves had it. He had a case like that.
Okay.
So it does. Look, we're celebrities. It happens, you know. So we turn around and it was like, okay, what? You know what I'm saying? So anyway, that later on, once of course I said, then, you know, it's okay because I'm just going to sue the tabloid that's put that out there. Yeah. And we still are suing the tabloid. It's just that it takes that long. The wheels of justice move rather slowly, and you know, because it's a civil case, there's nothing criminal because there's no criminal charge. So it's really, you know, I mean, come on, and let's get serious about it. I mean, you know, once you know hypnotism stalking and you see this silly stuff that's going on, you know, it becomes pretty funny. But this is the kicker. This is the absolute kicker. So I was really shocked. I was like, man, you know, and everyone's still writing me and they're like, hey, you know, and we're following you all on Instagram and we're following you on Facebook. And I'm just like, you know, I don't really use those services. Now I do use them now because of this situation. But I said, I don't have these services. So what is going on? Well, someone with the same letters and everything was imitating still being me on Instagram.
Well, welcome to the world today. Yeah.
It was, and you know, and we can say that individual that's alleged to be doing this fits the same description of the person putting out the photographs. How weird is that? Yes. So, and hang on, and leaves the calling card that's who they are. Now, that's how funny it is. If anyone looks into it, they go, "Oh, come on, this is." But when you look into it, then you start saying, "That's why there's nothing criminal. That's why there's no police case. That's why this is tabloid. This is why." And when we look even deeper into it, at that time, I was asked to fight, and now I'll leave it at that because it's going to be more exciting a little bit more as once this verdict comes out. But I can tell you that led up to, in Japan, it's a lot about storylines and everything connecting off. And then because Americans, they don't really get it, they just buy into everything, and that's where they got to be very careful. For example, if you're doing MMA, you can do MMA and pro wrestling all on one show, and it still counts as a fight. Okay.
Yeah.
So they call it all, but you've got to be able to separate it. Say, no, this is MMA fight, that's pro wrestling fight. But for Japan and everything, it's all the same thing. They paint it all with the same brush. So that can kind of answer some of the questions that a lot of the viewers have when they say, hey, Bob, you did this fight and, you took a dive. Well, all I'm going to say is nobody's really reading my contracts to know what they're seeing at all to do anything. So that makes me laugh.
No, and that's very interesting. And coming into this interview, I was like, we're not even going to dig into that, but you're very open about the whole situation,
yes.
Which I really do appreciate. And I remember, it was a few years back, I think you did an interview with Ariel Helwani,
yes.
if I remember right. And, and Ariel, Ariel is Ariel. I've met him a few times. The guy, he wants to be hard hitting all the time.
I think he's an idiot.
Well, there you go. I mean, I'm not friends with the guy, so it's not hurting my feelings. But
Right.
that being said, he always wants to ask those hard hitting questions. And Bob Sapp, did you do this? And I was just like, all right, whatever. It's like, you don't get the other aspect of it. And you explain things very well. You're like, why am I going to, when I sign a contract, and like you said, your contract could say a million different things. That being said, why am I going to sign a contract and get blasted in the head over and over again when you see a guy like a Gary Goodridge who doesn't, has bouts where it doesn't seem like he knows where he's at, and he's in a very, very bad place. So why are you going to do that? And I always understood that, because there's an element of show business to the fight game that people don't want to admit is there, first of all. And then second of all, like you said, you don't know what the contract looks like. So why do people want to judge it that way? And I'm very open to your response on that. And just kind of recount what that looks like for you. I mean, say, you're going to wherever, Belarus, or you're going to Slovenia. I know the guy that brought you into Slovenia, Slatko. He's a good friend of mine.
Yes.
Say you're going to one of these countries. Give me an idea of maybe what a contract would look like for you. If you're saying it's not right down the middle, a fight contract, boom, MMA, I'm fighting this guy. What does a contract look like for Bob Sapp? Just kind of give me an example.
Okay, so and there's a ton of examples. So let's just talk about what you have to do to be a professional fighter to go around. And this is very interesting. So I think that one, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell everyone. And number two, if this is the only chance they're going to learn a little bit of it for free. Okay, because then afterwards, then you will see we are now opening up an agency that will teach people how to do these things, because the majority of fighters have no idea. Yeah. I've been through well over 150 countries. There's 196 if you include Taiwan, or there's 195 if you disinclude Taiwan. Okay. So let me tell you what it looks like. So you will go to a country, and these countries, they don't have that much money. That everyone's YouTube or everyone's iPhone or their application will make what you do look sensational. It will make it look beautiful. But that don't necessarily mean that it got cash, brother. So I'm telling you, they could have spent it all on that application, okay? So it can fool you. So anyway, so you can go to these countries, and you'll go to these countries, and in my case, I'll go down there, and they'll say, okay, I'll have a certain amount. Now, the amount of money is based on that country, and it's based on what I have to do for that amount of money. Now, 9 times out of 10, now you can get a little smarter. You can do things like have traveler's insurance. But 9 times out of 10, most fighters, and I was the same at the beginning, we ain't going with any traveler's insurance, okay? We're just figuring, hey, we're there, we're going to get. So that can be a dangerous spot, because a lot of times, and this happened in Pride in Japan, this happened a lot of times, you can go out there, engage, get damaged, in that your entire paycheck you can lose by getting those stitches, getting staples, and getting out of that hospital for all of those things. Right off of the bat, depending on the country, if it's a developed country, they're going to ask you to pay for an MRI exam or a brain exam. That's going to run you about $750 to $1,000. Boom, that's gone. Okay. Yeah. So if you're doing something for $10,000, you're now at 9. Okay. Right off of the bat, you get some stitches. That stitches, depending on where it is, stitches are going to run you about $500, and then with your doctor's exam, it's going to run you $700. And if it's staples, that's going to run you between $1,200 and $1,500. Well, you do the math on that. You know what I mean? And so now you're going home with that amount of money. Now, if you're going to go home first of all, if you're going to get on that plane to go back home, well, you got to wait for somebody to call you, pick up the phone, pay your trainer, pay off your bills. You got to wait on all that. So you may be okay in that situation if that happened to be the amount of money. But see, I don't do that. I don't wait to go home. While I'm there at that fight doing that, while I'm up in my room, I go to the next country. Hey, I'm next door right here. In 24 hours, I come over here. I can just get on a bus and come over here and fight. And I will charge you the same amount. So now mine goes up. Make sure I'm no injured. Then I'm off to the next one. And I'll do it again and again and again and again. Now those contracts will come in. Those contracts will say, hey, listen, you know, we respect you. And if you would like to come over here, we need you to put butts in seats and to make this exciting. Yep. We will have half of our show is composed of the Japan pro wrestling style format. The other half is composed of the MMA format. Our audience no even care. We've been getting, when I was in Syria, was it Syria? Yeah, Serbia. When I was in Serbia, that's right when they just have this big conflict over there. They said, man, we ain't caring what the hell y'all doing with pro wrestling, the MMA fighting, or whatever that. We need these guys to be entertained.
That's it.
We've seen real soldiers. So please don't come say you're a soldier, because we got them out and they dead. You know what I mean? They risking their life and whatever. Please don't come saying all that stuff. Come over here and entertain us and do this stuff. Boom. That's what I do. I get in there, get that done, and do it. Now, when it comes to let's talk about the MMA fights.
Yeah.
If it comes to a real serious MMA fight, and the same thing applies to the pro wrestling, but we'll just talk about the MMA. But if we do some MMA fights, then hey, listen. Will I go through for $7,000 or for $40,000, get my orbital broken, and risk that for $40,000 when at the time when I got my orbital broken, I'm receiving high six figures with medical care all taken care of and first class accommodations through and through to whatever? Come on. I mean, you know, that's just silly, you know. So some of us, you know, want to say, hey, I have $1 and I want to buy a Mercedes. Mercedes don't do that. They don't say, hey, you got $1 and yet that's the best you can do, and so therefore you can buy this car, right? The price is still the same. It's a high luxury item. If you are a fighter, you are your own business. You have to decide how you're going to still make money and what gives that increase and decrease in money and all of that stuff. And so now it's pretty simple. And I still get calls today to do fighting and pro wrestling. And the reason why, and the reason why I've kind of stood back from that is because I've decided to take, you know, just to wait. I've recently, we'll just have to wait and see about, you know, the news may come.
Yeah, we talked about this.
That's right. May be extremely exciting. But one thing, but what I'm just saying this much is that is the way to run your company and to run your business. And I have been applauded for doing such and for doing all of those things. I am very grateful that I don't have any of the long-lasting injuries that a lot of these fighters have done that get down. And listen, they do have the respect and the tweets from the fans that say, hey, you're great. I mean, listen, if you look at some of the comments about Gary Goodrich, they say, man, he was a champion, he was a warrior, he was great. And I think that's, you know, for me, I'd rather you say I sucked, okay? Because I don't want the brain damage to go with
and you have the facilities. Kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, what's more important? You're 100% right. What's more important, having Joe Blow in Indiana think that you're a warrior and a hero, or being able to remember what you did yesterday? What's more important? You tell me. I mean, at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I feel you.
So therefore, when I set up my tour, when I do a Bob Sapp tour, I go all the way around. And you know what? And first of all, here's the thing: if you're a really hardcore great guy and you can really come through, and a lot of guys they go, hey man, we look at you and know that you can just blow on the guy and knock that guy out. How'd that guy end up winning that one? And then you got to start thinking to yourself, wait a minute. This country they spent their very most money bringing him in and having that guy have that beautiful situation of going against that champion and everything else. If you beat them, they don't even have the money to bring you back. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, and if you go around the world whooping everyone's ass and you're way up there and okay, here's the thing. As a fighter, you are unable to make money in we say this, you cannot make the club in the tub, which means as a professional fighter, you are getting your income by fighting or doing engagements, entertaining engagements. So you can be 15-0 and everybody love you. And you know what? Everybody else around the world say, well, I want to fight him after I get some more fights and then I'm going to do it. You're going to be sitting on your butt. You ain't going to be making one dime, okay? So
guys to
you
this
can literally
day are
be,
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can literally be one of the best fighters and make no money at all whatsoever. And everybody else will, and then you know what happens? Then they start getting all the fame being talked about. They start getting it, and you start going, wait a minute, I'm number one here, and I'm not getting anything. Yeah, that's what happens. So you have to, as your business, you really have to judge it as a business. Now, what I decided to do was real easy. I just kept going all the way through, and it was exciting as heck. And I basically started, and the ones that had me do for the hardcore MMA fights, for those hardcore fights, it was easy. They knew the higher the paycheck, the more I'm turning up, the more it's going to be, the more I'm going to blast it up, the more I'm going to give more of myself. The more they give themselves, the more I'm going to give myself. And so they would say this. I say, well, listen, you know, I had a call over here from Russia recently, and they said, hey, we'd like you to come in. I said, okay. So when do you want me to come in? They were saying, oh, maybe sometime in December. I said, okay. So do I have to train for the fight? And they said, what's that mean? I say, so if it's a non-training fight, the price is this much. If it's a training fight, and obviously it'd be like 5 times as much. Okay? Yeah. So you tell me what you want.
Yeah.
And they, you know, and they would come back and they'd say, well, it's a non-training fight. Okay. you know, that's, you know what I'm saying? I mean, man, you know, if you want the beast and all this stuff, hey, it costs, you know, I got to get managers, trainers, security, all kinds of stuff. It gets crazy, you know? So but I would like to briefly speak on going to these other countries and what it really means for these other countries. Cause a lot of people have no idea, okay, you know, you guys, they don't have all the doctors in the facilities and, you know, the safety standards. They don't have the security. They don't have the people to understand English and write up these huge, long contracts. And the contracts mean nothing anyway because it's in a different country, different jurisdiction. So they don't have that. They're barely able to scrape up their currency. And if the currency is devalued, you could actually walk out of there with less money and they did nothing about it. Okay? You know, I've shown up to fights and they've had gloves that no fit. They've had no tape. This was crazy. I've seen them have to use duct tape to to tape people up, okay? So you know, I mean, you know, they've got no idea. But then on television, it looks so beautiful and so wonderful. And you know, and that's a testament to that country and for what they're doing. You know, the women are definitely gorgeous, okay, no matter where I went. Wow, that's for sure. So,
I'm going to leave that one alone. I feel you. I know what you mean. I worked in Romania for like 3 years.
Yes. Beautiful. That's right. I think that's one of the places where they do a lot of that online kind of chat rooms where the girls take their clothes off.
That, man. It's cybersecurity. Whew, yes. It's wild over there. Yeah.
Yes. That's right. And so if you have a fight, that's exactly right. So when I was over there, when I fought over there in Romania, that's exactly right. The fight looks absolutely amazing. Let me tell you what, that fight took place at 3:34 in the morning, and I was there at 6 in the morning. To 3:34 in the morning the next day. That's how they had to keep running. And it was packed, okay?
You fight Lungu there, didn't you?
Yes. And I mean, and they packed this place. It was so funny. I mean, and they had no idea how they packed. The doors were open and, you know, people were coming in and out, you know. And you listen, forget firearm control. Okay. They were throwing this 9mm round, playing hot potato with it, you know, and I was just like, you guys, man. But you know, it's just overseas. It's just what happens. No one got hurt. Nothing happened, but it just happened to be like, wow, these guys don't have a clue of what they're talking about online. That's why I always laugh. I'm like, I said, I can
I
tell
do
the
too.
fake, you know.
I'm with you on that 100%, Bob. And real quick, I want to touch on a few things because we've been talking. We opened up some cans of worms, which I love.
Yes.
The Ernesto Hoost fight. I mean, wow. You know, I mean,
Yes.
I think, you know, for the hardcore fans, that's the fight that everybody always goes back to, and they're like, wow, Bob, when you did that, it was probably one of the biggest upsets because, you know, Hoost was considered and is still considered to this day probably the best kickboxer that's ever lived.
Yes.
You get that win, and that automatically, it seems like, legitimized you as a professional fighter. Just talk about that real quick.
It did, you know, so I came in with basically less than a month's experience. I was training with Josh Barnett and Maurice Smith.
Less than a month's experience.
Yes. So that's what it is. As a fighter, there's none of this, hey, we're going to give you 5 weeks ahead, 5 months ahead. They usually don't like to do that. For the really big shows and the ones that really have a lot of professional clout and stuff, they'll do that. But remember, I was a nobody, so they just throw you in.
Yeah.
And I was meant to be a big tomato can to go in there and go against Ernesto Hoost. That's what I was meant to be. And so it's sink or swim. And that's what you got. And that's what you got to remember as a professional fighter. It is sink or swim. So those of you who are past your 20s, in your 21, 25 years old, I was 25. You have to fight the champion right now, period, in order for you to make it. So now it did aid that I was 6'4", 375 pounds. Okay.
Well, of course, yeah.
Okay, and a former professional athlete, one that was breaking records all the way through strength and speed and all that other stuff. So that definitely helped. It wouldn't know happen in America. Okay, with my accolades that have already occurred, they would not let that difference happen because they would say, look, the guy's so big and so strong, he's in the upper 1 percentile, so he's not going to be able to go into that ring and to do that. Okay, so they would have made special provisions. But hey, in Japan, you can do that.
No doubt.
So I went against Ernesto Hoost. He was at that time the 3-time world champion. And he came in and he kicked me something, low kicked me about 26 times. So those who are unfamiliar with a low kick, that's your shin being kicked right on your lower extremities, the back of your thigh, to where it will actually collapse or crush that what basically leads up to your nerve for sciatica. Okay, I had sciatica. I could sit down for 6 months after that fight. Okay, so he completely crushed my sciatic nerve all the way down, and the nerves all the way through my leg on that fight. But because I was so big, I started rocking back and forth, and I could feel that I was going to almost fall down. So I said, if I'm going to fall down, let him catch you and punch at the same time, man. Just do that. And I did that, and I ended up knocking him out, and I beat him for the first time. And because he's a champion, he can determine, hey, I would like to fight again.
Of course. Yeah.
I think it was 2 or 3 weeks later, he said, I'm bringing that back. That's too easy. I'm bringing it back. He got on the ring with me, and I knocked him out again. So that was it. That was it. So by that time, they said, okay, he's here. And then in between there, we had some other exciting fights where I went against Antonio Nogueira, where I picked him up and powerbombed him. And that's another fight when we talk about it pays to be a loser. So yes, I lost the fight. Nogueira got powerbombed on his head, spent 3 days comatose afterwards because of the swelling. He did win the fight because of swelling. It has fused parts in his back and his neck for life for that. So I'm happy I lost the fight. Okay, I don't need to be a winner. Okay, I'm okay.
How close was the Tyson fight to happening? Because that was one that obviously you look back on history and what could have been, and obviously you guys had the confrontation in the ring.
Yes.
How close was that fight?
It was extremely close. It was to the point to where, actually they had some legislation where they really wanted to get him into Japan. So we anticipated at that time for it to be a fantastic, a huge, big time rally. And it's something that everybody around the world wanted to see. And I believe still today still wants to see. Everybody still talks about that to this day, because that's the one thing nobody ever really got going. But if you talk about something historical, you've got Muhammad Ali has went to Japan and went against Inoki. Then we saw Mayweather and McGregor, but right in between then we have that Sapp versus Tyson feud. So these feuds are very big for countries to get behind, and they always like to see them. And so that was just the one thing that looks like it slipped away. And and then we did see Mayweather fight Tenshu against Mayweather earlier this last year, I believe 2 years ago.
Sure.
In Japan on the Bob Sapp holiday of December 31st. So those are all the things that we really wish. Now that's something crazy, right? To actually have a day where everybody fights because you're known for it and you put it on the books. That's crazy.
No, it absolutely is. Give me a longest yard story. I mean, there has to be something good from that set, just something that was fun that you remember fondly.
Oh, absolutely. The fun. Not only was the craft services food great, but Adam Sandler, when we're walking down with all this football, gear on, we're walking down to the set. Every day, Adam is beating us there, and we're just going, man, how the hell is this dude beating us over here to the set, man? This is crazy. It was hot, and we're dragging, and every time Adam is on there, I'm like, man, Adam a true champion. And we're just like, yeah, Adam a true musician, man, because how does he keep beating everybody? And so we got up early. We was like, man, we got to see how Adam's doing this. Man, Adam had a scooter. He had a scooter. He got this thing on. He was scooting all the way down there. We got his ass, boy. We got him, man. We shared some good laughs and that. We said, man, you got a scooter? He's like, yeah, I got a scooter, man. I'm too tired to be walking that stuff up in there. We could not stop laughing, man.
Who did you vibe with the most there on that set? Obviously, so many huge stars, and Kevin Nash and Goldberg, and just so many big guys. Who did you vibe with the most?
Oh, for me, it was like a reunion with Bill Goldberg and Kevin Nash, because I met with those guys at WCW and I had shared some wonderful laughs with Terry Crews and Tracy Morton. The one guy that I bumped into that we actually ended up going on to make another movie. That I, sometimes you never know the impression that you make on somebody and how that all of a sudden forms something great.
Well, I'm hoping that our impression right now is going to lead to a movie in Japan with me in it. Since we're
there you go.
right now.
There we go. We bring in man. I'm telling you. So you never know, because things go very good. I bumped into a little guy by the name of Rob Schneider.
Yeah.
The next thing you know, I am in a movie with Rob Schneider, and we do one together, and we have a great time. Yep, and we have a great time. So that was fantastic. So I'm very fortunate, and I am very fortunate in regards to, I'm blessed and fortunate to, one, I have training, and I learned how to handle the fame, and I learned how to handle the business, and I ran it and did it the right way. And I'm very happy with it. And if you look at the movies that I've done, and as far as most actors and stuff like that, you can say I've done about 19 movies or so. But if you say, well, those are not necessarily a lot, but Bob, how is it you get your big royalties and stuff for movies? You have to look at the movies that I've done. Elektra, Marvel comic, high following, high royalties. The Longest Yard, #1 movie in the world, and high following, high royalties. Conan the Barbarian, high following, high royalties that come from that. So the smaller stuff that I've done, not too many things, but the things that I have done, Blood and Bone, of course, the #1 cult classic. Same thing with Big Sand. Those things, in your royalties, you get paid for life. Those things enable me to have a wonderful, substantial life without having to dig too much into the interest, my money, the interest of the money that I have accumulated all the way through here. I'm no big flaunter. I know have tattoos. I know do bling bling, and I shop at Goodwill to get my clothes. So, hey, only you can see the Sapp man wearing this one. I don't think. Let's take a look at this shirt. You see this? Dr. Brahman's all natural soap. Okay, is that backwards on there?
Yeah. So, no, it looks. I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. So, I use the all natural, you know what I'm saying? I use the all natural stuff, and I'm not going over, doing so, I keep the expenses extremely, extremely down. And when you do that, you can then retire in enough peace and have some enjoyment, and now I just spend my days just just reading and doing some training, and I'm doing one other project, but we're not quite sure if that project will come out. But if it does, I assure you, you will understand why I handled the career the way that I've done.
Is there anything left on that bucket list? I mean, man, what a wild ride! What an awesome life you've had. Is there anything on the bucket list, something you want to do, or something that you can foresee going forward, or do you feel pretty comfortable that the life you've lived has pretty much covered all the bases?
Yes, now I'm studying. I'm going back to study a lot of the different sciences and stuff like that. I'm really highly interested in that CRISPR-Cas9, so I'm studying that 24/7. And then I'm also studying a lot more. I love the challenges and stuff. So now I'm challenging myself for meditation. I'm designing a nice little fun obstacles here, doing the meditation and things like this. So this stuff is really fun. So other than that, that's it. It's really difficult. My friends call and they laugh all the time. And they'd be like, Bob, they say, you guys got that lockdown, but what they don't know is Bob been living in that lockdown because he don't do nothing. You know what I'm saying? So I'm totally cracking up. I'm like laughing. So I'm very content with what I've got, and it's really been real nice to me. And Japan offered this to a lot of the guys, but you got to be careful when you get online and you want to just talk about something, and then you want to be seen as an expert, and then actually hurt the stuff to where you've been there. And so what I'm talking and referring to is, like, I've seen some interviews where they say, oh, Pride did a lot of fake fights. They did this stuff. And they actually have some fighters that fought in this organization or that were very close, that received a paycheck from them. That's just, in my mind, that looks like a snitch. You know what I'm saying? It's like, man, you know what, because, you don't do that. You know what I'm saying? You don't go back through and all of a sudden now these things go through and now, you're off in a better place or a different place, and you're like, nanny boo boo, I'm in America and I'm going to turn you guys in there. Man, come on, these guys fed you, man, when you needed to eat, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so,
that seems to be the trend, to go back and to do that shoot interview and to bury this person and to bury that person just so you can get a little bit of a paycheck and get some more views online. So yeah, I hear you. That is the trend we're in right now.
That's right, and that's the reason why when I said Ariel Helwani being an idiot, that's what I meant. Is when he said, "Hey, I'm as big as a fighter as you right now." No, wait, hold up, man. You ain't ever walked down and had 100,000 people scream your name, and ever had some. Listen, I've had people that were unable to get my autograph jump and kill themselves off of buildings. You've never had to go through that. You've never had to see that. You never had done that. You take one small thing and that you have no idea about what's going on and then come through and say it. But I am the one, because of all this stuff, nobody can say anything. I have the world record. So, and I fought in front of over 100,000 people many times. UFC's yet to pack it in with 100,000 people. I fought in front of 100,000 people many times. I fought in front of 54 million people. So think about that. Before that, they had, if 54 million was the record, I've had 3 million, 4 million, 30 million, 20 million all the time. That are Nestor Who's fight, by the way. And this is just crazy. I get kind of sick of looking at this stuff all the time because I always laugh at it. But, the last time I checked on, I think it was Fight Yard for Facebook. Do you want to know how many views that thing had? That thing had 99 million views. Okay. Now, come on now. Ariel Helwani, man, ain't got one of these things to add up to, 100 million. Okay. So, I mean, get out of here. So, you just got to kind of laugh at it and just say, okay, good. You know what I mean? So, but that's the kind of stuff. But it's okay. I just remember the ones who really want to cover content and excitement and make it fun. Then that's where the stuff goes to.
Well, Bob, you do have a little bit of a presence online now with the Facebook. You have Instagram, right? Am I right?
I have Instagram, so it's called Bob Sapp Official, or Official Bob Sapp, one of those two, I think. So I'm not even using it a lot yet. And now they one thing that really helped, Cameo.com came to my rescue, and they said, Bob, we know that that you would have a ton of Facebooks, but and a ton of Instagrams, but everybody's pretending to be you. So what we're going to do is just you say that you got this cameo.com and then come here and we'll bring you here. And everyone's been kind of jumping in and coming back in and wanting to get a hold of me and doing the stuff here that's said. And you know what? And it's real life. So know everybody that writes me writes positive things and all of that stuff. And I just tell them, I say, listen, you can make fun, but don't make hate. Okay, you can make fun, but don't make hate. You know, yeah. So come on and make fun of me, and that's fun and enjoy it. You know, all the good stuff. But come on, don't make hate, man. That's just stupid. It's completely pointless.
Life's too short, my friend. Life is way too short. We only get so much time on this planet, my friend. Absolutely. Yes. Well, Bob, totally. It has been an absolute pleasure. Please, you know, keep that Instagram up. We want to see what you're up to. And and I'm just glad we got to connect and have this talk. It's been a lot of fun.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you so much. Be safe. And that's it, folks. And that is wrapping up this episode of In This Corner. What an incredible episode it was. We may have to make that an episode all by itself there with Mr. Bob Sapp. Folks, follow us online and check out our official YouTube channel. I'm Cyrus Fees. We'll see you next time on In This Corner.